we're really happy to let you know that now there's availability for mortgages for expats. So we have an expert in mortgages. We have Mr. Luke Coast, who is the owner, operator, primary agent at Expat Realtors. Expat Realtors is one of the most renowned local realtors. Luke's been in the mortgage business for over 27 years, and here in Mexico, he's been active in mortgages for over 14 years. Luke has an office in the Fluvial, brand new office. He's got a full staff, and he's one of the movers and shakers in the local industry. Luke, say hi.
Ray had asked me to come on today to share information with you about mortgage options that are available to foreigners residing or not residing in Mexico. Before I jump into all that, I want to give you a little background about myself. I have been a part of the real estate industry in Mexico for 14 years. I own and operate a real estate company called Expats Realtors in Fluvial, Vallarta, on the same main avenue where Costco is located. I reside in Oregon in the United States and also have a home in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And I have been in the mortgage industry in the United States for 27 plus years, with offices in Seattle, Washington, Denver, Colorado, and Vancouver, Washington, and agents up there. The business of Expat Realtors is about helping people buy, sell, maintain, and rent properties. We do not do mortgage loans at Expat Realtors. We refer or connect people to 3 mortgage brokers that I'll be talking about in the meeting today. There's a lot to think about and consider when you're evaluating doing a mortgage to purchase a property. The vast majority of transactions in Mexico are cash transactions. They're not done with mortgage loans. When you're coming from the USA or Canada, and you're used to mortgage loan process and steps and sequences up there, you need to be more flexible when pursuing and engaging in mortgage options in Mexico. While the vendors try to emulate and have the steps and processes be somewhat similar to that in the US, there are some differences that you need to be aware of which I'll talk about today also.
A lot of people believe that expats are not allowed to legally buy property, own property in Mexico. And there's a process called fideicomiso. And my understanding, even Mexican nationals use this method of transferring title because it has the advantage of kind of like what a title company would do in making sure you have clear and smooth transitions of title.
Foreigners can purchase property in Mexico that are not USA, that are not citizens in Mexico. And they can hold the deed, or what's called an escritura, in their name if it's not in a restricted zone. If it's in a restricted zone, which would be 50 kilometers from the coast or 200 kilometers from a border, it's required that the escritura, the deed, be held in the name of a bank trust. And a bank trust is somewhat similar as far as what you would be familiar with the United States or Canada as a trust. The trust has an executor and the trust has beneficiaries. The beneficiaries of the trust would be the buyer, the foreigner. And the executor of the trust would be the assigned bank that is selected. And the executor just follows the direction that is pre-established with the bank trust when it's formed and from the beneficiaries. And a bank trust, I look at a bank trust as actually being much better than owning the property in your own name for the following reasons. Number one, it eliminates the need for any probate process in the event somebody passes away. When a bank trust is set up, you pre-establish the substitute beneficiaries, first, second, and third level. So if you die it's already established that your daughter takes ownership of it, or maybe 50% goes to this person, 50% goes to that person. And then you can also establish the other levels beyond that if some of those people pass away. So it allows for much easier, quicker, efficient, less costly transfer of beneficiary ownership of the property. A fideicommiss and bank trust is not free. They typically run anywhere from like $450 to $750 a year. But that annual fee I look at as being kind of a prepay to future transfer of title in the event somebody passes away. You don't have to engage an attorney. You don't have to go through probate court. Most of the time when somebody buys property in Mexico and they tell, hey, if I die, you get to inherit my property. Those people that would inherit the property have never been to Mexico or would be completely uncomfortable or not know where to go or how to do it if they had to go through a Mexico probate court and Mexico attorney experience. So having a fideicommiss bank trust is nice because they literally just provide the death certificate and pay like a $200 fee and maybe a couple other little steps and it's done. They don't have to engage in any of that or go through the cost of an attorney in probate court. So it makes it easier.
We had a question about the smooth transfer of ownership.
So legal requirements for transferring the property deed and how to ensure a smooth transfer. There are various ways in which people engage or transact property sales in Mexico. Most Mexican nationals will just do the transaction directly with the notario. And the notario down here is not the same as a notary in the USA or Canada. A notario down here is much more of an official government position that ensures proper recording and tax collection and creation of the deed. When you are transacting in a purchase or sale of a property, because everything that is of legal purpose is in Spanish, we recommend that foreigners engage to have a Mexico real estate attorney represent them, review the documentation and information so that they have an expert, fully bilingual, that can be their eyes, ears, and representative. Most real estate agents in Mexico, including myself, we're not Mexico real estate attorneys. We are not fluent in all of the Mexico laws, and we may not be fluent in the language either. So having a Mexico real estate attorney look over things is highly advised to ensure that everything is done correctly. And that is also typically the best form of title insurance in Mexico, because in an escriture or a deed of a property, it's kind of the entire life of the property from when the first deed was established on the property, showing all the histories and transfers. So a Mexico real estate attorney can review that history and how the transactions prior to yours transacted to identify if there's anything that looks peculiar or maybe potentially missed that might require some additional level of evaluation or validation. More specifically, normally things that are concerning would be other mortgages that were previously on the property, and if those mortgages were reconveyed, released off the property correctly. Regarding the costs, well, the time frame, a cash purchase, again, 45 days from start to finish, and a mortgage loan, maybe add 1 to 2 months on there. Costs associated with an entire transaction, typically around 5% of the purchase price. And what you should expect during the process. Well, consumers can have a very different experience when in the process, depending on who they're working with and how they handle a transaction. Again, some people just try to do everything with the notario, but when you're working with a real estate agent, typically the real estate agent or agency will have a transaction manager who is a Mexico real estate attorney that handles and facilitates a lot of the aspects of the transaction. And that person is typically compensated by the notarial's office for doing the work that they would normally do. When doing a cash purchase in Mexico, it is important to realize that even if you're a cash buyer, there are substantial closing costs associated with purchasing in Mexico. The standard closing costs have gone up a little bit of recent due to some new transfer tax laws that have gone into place. You should budget securely 5% of the purchase price for closing costs on a cash purchase. It is possible they could be slightly higher than that. I have seen them also be slightly lower than that. Mortgage options add to the closing costs because there are additional things that have to happen, such as recordings of the mortgage loan and additional work that's required by notarios' offices, but that add to the cost. So when you're engaging in a mortgage loan, your closing costs surely are going to be above 5%. Mortgage brokers tend to charge anywhere from 1 to 6% additional for their origination costs and fees and so forth. So that can easily take a cash purchase, which might be around 5% of the purchase price, to anywhere from probably typically 7 to 11% of the purchase price in total for closing costs if you're getting 1 to 6% origination fees associated with doing a mortgage loan. So do budget accordingly in that regards. A lot of the lenders will finance their fees into the loan for you, so you don't necessarily have to have those additional costs. If you do have real estate that you own in your country of origin, you can save quite a bit of money because the costs are much less for mortgage loans in the USA and Canada if you were to do a cash out refinance or do a home equity line of credit and access the money that you need there and then become a cash buyer down here. So do always explore that option first is what I recommend.
Well, I definitely believe that we're going to have to do these in sections because there is so much ground to cover, and there's so much that's different from the U.S. and Canada markets that we are familiar with. I was wondering if you could take a minute to talk about the possibility of construction loans and how that might work, how that process would be manifest.
Oh, well, let me make sure I understand your question. Are you talking about a construction loan or are you talking about pre-construction like a condo building?
No, I'm talking about someone who wanted to, for example, buy land and develop.
Construction loans are only available through the Mexican banks, which means you are going to need to fit the qualifications from a credit and income standpoint and immigration status standpoint. And then, of course, the developer will have to meet qualifications, the builder that is, and the terms will be significantly different than any of the terms that I've talked about so far on this call. It's actually been a while since I've looked at any of those types of loans, so I'm not sure what the current types of terms are that are available. Construction loans in the US and Canada are not fun, and I have not been involved in any construction loans with clients down here in Mexico. I would assume they're also not fun. So anytime somebody wants to buy land and build on it, I recommend you borrow from yourself, like an investment account loan, or if you have real estate in your country of origin, take a temporary loan out on that and use that to build down here. So you're not fussing around with Mexico Bank and their processing, its protocols and procedures. And then once the construction's done, then you can do a cash out loan. And the cash out loans are available to foreigners through these mortgage brokers. You know, if you buy a place down here all cash and you just use it as a vacation home, and when you come down, you're just a tourist, you can do a cash out loan on a piece of property. So if you bought a condo on the beach for $200,000, you just come down once a year for a week, and you're like, hey, I want to get a loan on that, so in Mexico, so that I can use the money for something else, whatever. There are cash out loans available for foreigners also.
Okay, wow, that was information-packed session. Luke, thank you for coming. Everybody who's attended, thank you very much. We'll let you know when we have the next one of these segments. I think that we have a lot to cover, so we've got a lot of information. We've got to go quite a ways with this. I want to thank everyone, and until next time, have a great one.
Thank you. Pleasure being here today. Take care. Bye-bye.